guys, my name is Araf, and today we're going to talk about three important components of life. Without those components, you cannot live. As simple as that. And Earth is the only planet which has life. It's crazy. And also, not yet it's known as the only planet with life. They're still discovering outer space, but we'll talk about that in a later video. So for just today, we're going to talk about the three components of life. So let's talk about the first component, the atmosphere. Now, atmosphere is a big blanket surrounding the Earth. Well, so the atmosphere is in our Earth. One layer is out of Earth, so the exosphere, which is the space atmosphere, that we don't count it because it's not in our Earth, but still it can be counted as an atmosphere layer. So if you take a hot air balloon, you'll also need to breathe. So that's why, do you know when trekkers walk up like Himalayas or Mount Everest or mountains, so basically like that, so they need a oxygen tank. There is no oxygen up there. I mean, there's less oxygen. I mean, I wouldn't say not oxygen, but there's just less oxygen. So the layers, there's different layers, but one layer is strange. The meiosphere. The meiosphere is strange because, like, this would be right. You would just go up and then it will get colder. When the meiosphere, it gets warmer. What? How is this possible? Well, it's possible because there is an external force. That what happens is the external force hits and the cold, also the internal force hits, and when that happens is it creates, like, it's so warm there. So, and then there's the other layer I was talking about. So meiosphere is the last layer of the atmosphere on Earth, but the last layer of the atmosphere is outer space, and it's the exosphere, like I told you. So now let's talk about the hydrosphere, another component of life. So hydrosphere, it's water. So without water we can't live. Only 71% of water covers the whole entire Earth, and only 3% is fresh drinking water. So you're probably wondering, there's 3% of water left, how are we having water still? Well, I've got a solution how. So what happens is there's a water cycle. So the water cycle, it basically works like this. The first step is evaporation. So the water, you've got the water, and then what happens is the sun is so bright, it evaporates, and when it evaporates, it goes up to the clouds. So do you know when you look up to the sky and you see clouds? Those are water vapors. And so that's called condensation. When the water condenses into those particles, like dust particles, and creates clouds. Cool, isn't it? So when that happens, but one thing is that if there's too much water, the clouds go to the other side, and then they get dark and grey. And then the water falls down on the land, and then that's called precipitation. And then it just goes back in the rivers, turns into groundwater, or just forms. And then when that happens, we've got more water. Yay! So now we're going to talk about the oceans of the world. There's about 5 oceans. First ocean is Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, the Indian Ocean, Arctic Ocean, and the Southern Ocean. 5 oceans. let's talk about the Atlantic Ocean first. The Atlantic Ocean is known as the busy ocean because there's a lot of trading going on, and it's got a big mountain range that is bigger than the Himalayas. So that's basically Atlantic Sea, the Atlantic Ocean. So now let's talk about the biggest ocean, which is the Pacific Ocean. And that was also a fact. So the Pacific Ocean is it has a mountain bigger than Mount Everest. You're probably wondering, how is that possible when it's underwater and Mount Everest is on land? Well, what scientists did, they just took the Mount Everest and dumped it in the water, and then they just measured it like that, and yeah, the Pacific Ocean mountain was bigger. Technically, Mount Everest isn't the big mountain, but it is the biggest mountain on land. The water mountain in the Pacific Ocean is the biggest sea mountain. So now let's talk about the Indian Ocean. Well, the Indian Ocean it's got sea life in there, so there's like turtles, and those turtles, they look cool. So basically that's what Indian Ocean is. Now let's talk about the Southern and the Arctic Ocean. Well, there's not much to say about them. There's just ice everywhere. Here, there, here, everywhere. And because it's close to the Arctic and the North Pole and the South Pole, so they both just have ice, basically. We've got big ice bodies. So now, yeah, that was the hydrosphere. Now let's talk about the lithosphere. Lithosphere. Try guessing what the lithosphere is. I'll give you a second. Okay, if you thought of land, then you're correct. So what happens is 4.50 billion years ago, our Earth was a flaming hot ball with like lava everywhere, magma, and crazy. We couldn't live there. But as the atmosphere developed, like I told you about the atmosphere, it's also how the Earth kind of cooled down. So the Earth cooled down, and once that happened, the core. So before I tell you what the layers were, I'm going to talk about the core. So the core, there's two parts of the core: the inner core and the outer core. The inner core is the most warm. It's just burning hot molten lava, and then the outer layer is the one which is surrounding the inner core, and then yeah, that's basically the cores. Now the other levels. Magma. A magma is a semi-solid lava, which also it's kind of like molten lava, but it's not that much. And then you got the tectonic plates. Yeah, that's what the Earth, when they cool down, look like. So then what happened is it created landforms. Now I'm going to tell you a landform. I'm going to talk about the mountains. The mountains, yes. The mountains were created. If you want to know how the volcanic mountains were created, I'll tell you right now. So it was created when the lava went through the tectonic plates and then spewed out. Not that much. And then it kept on happening until it created a mountain. That's what one mountain looked like. The other mountain was the plateaus and the plains. So I'm going to talk about the plateaus first. Plateaus when the tectonic plates, they had two cracks, and those cracks were called fault lines. And then the middle part sink down a little bit, and the other lands on top. So that's how plateaus were created. Now let's talk about plains. Plains were created when, let's say, you got mountains, and it can be ice mountains. So when the ice melted, there's water coming down, and what happens is, because there's pressure, it cracks some rock, and then it goes to the riverbed where the river goes, and because when you're going down on a cycle, it goes faster, but when you go on a straight line, it goes slower. Basically like that, that's how it works when the rocks go faster and then just stop at, like they go slow, and then stop at a second, and then when there's heavy rain, the river gets flooded and then leaves rocks, deposits rocks, and then when that keeps on happening, it turns into a plane. So now I'm going to talk about another mountain, the Fold Mountain. They're called Fold Mountain because this is what happens. Tectonic plates, they go, and once that happens, look at this. So the stress, and then what happens then? It creates a mountain. Now that's basically like if you go origami, you fold it. That's why they're called fold mountains, because they're like origami. And then when they fold, they turn into a mountain. Yay! Now let's talk about the block mountains. So block mountains are another type of mountain. So remember, we've got internal pressure. I mean the internal force, or you could do pressure, and the external force. So the external force is used in this. When it goes, external force gets used when it's got like water coming through it. So if it's an ice mountain, what happens then is the pressure and the winds, they try to break the rocks, and then when that keeps on happening, it turns into a block. That's basically what block mountains are. So yeah, and tectonic plates move all the time. I mean, they go slow. They go 2.5 kilometers per year. That is pretty slow. So we can't really feel it because it goes so slow. So yeah. And also one more thing, the core is still hot and molten lava. But if we don't have that, the air is going to get polluted because there's going to be so much carbon in the air. It's going to be smashed, damps. Nobody can live there anymore. They have to transfer to another world. We still haven't found another Earth we can live in. Earth. So, also the atmosphere. I don't think I told you about the atmosphere, that it had, well, the gases. So 78% of the atmosphere is nitrogen, which is necessary for life, and 27% of oxygen, and the other percentage left is carbon dioxide or carbon, argon, and other gases, including that. So yeah, those are the 3 components of life which you need to survive. So yeah. Now I hope you learned some components of life which is really necessary for you, everyone. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.